Thank you, Opes, for sponsoring this video. When Germany was going through its hyperinflation back in I think it was the late 20s or the mid 20s of the 1900s, there was a young man who went to a bread store. He went to a bakery to buy a loaf of bread. Well, he took the currency that he needed to buy that loaf of bread, he took it in a wheelbarrow, because it took so many paper notes to buy a loaf of bread that he couldn't carry it in his pockets. So he had a wheelbarrow full of currency from that country at that time, right? He parked his wheelbarrow outside the door of the entrance to the bakery because he was going to go inside first and ask, hey, how much is a loaf of bread? And when he negotiated the price with the bakery owner, he went back outside to get his wheelbarrow full of money. The paper currency at that time was worth so little that the time that he was inside negotiating for that loaf of bread, someone had come along and stolen the wheelbarrow. So he went back outside and he found nothing but a pile of paper notes. Why? Because all of those paper notes inside that wheelbarrow were worth less than the wheelbarrow itself. Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'm going to say thank you very much to all of you who joined in on our live stream yesterday. It was one of those impromptu live streams and we had a lot of you out there and we had a great time as we always do. If you remember during that live stream, if you watched it, I was talking about how the world reserve currency is going to come to an end eventually, and it's probably sooner than later. And it was because Saudi Arabia is now in the pockets, I guess you can say, of Russia instead of in our pockets, right? Russia is providing Saudi Arabia with military arms and military support like we used to, and we are no longer, right? So, but that's not what this video is about. During that live stream, I talked about how we were in such dire straits when the dollar finally falls because we have so many quadrillions of dollars in derivatives. And what that means is that all of those dollar derivatives out there, they will eventually have to be paid in dollars. But those dollars that they need to be paid in, they do not exist. So it will be a complete implosion of the United States financial system, and it will take down the entire Western world with it. I believe that the Eastern world, like the BRICS nations, they're aligning themselves with each other so that they can weather the storm that is coming, that is the destruction of the Federal Reserve note. And it just happens that today, I'm not saying that they watched my live stream. I'm not that important to these people right here. But I just want to go ahead and read it to you from their point of view, from a person's point of view that does this for a living. This is what he's been doing with his life's work, is studying economics, is studying finances. All right, so the way that I put it to you yesterday during the live stream was pretty raw, but this is a lot more refined. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the market for a quality solar generator, Opes makes a good quality solar generator at a very competitive price. My favorite is the Opes 2400, or what I like to call the Beast. I have a 25 cubic foot refrigerator and it can run for more than 16 hours on one charge. So whether you need one for a refrigerator, freezer, medical, or personal devices, I'm sure that Opes has a size that will fit your needs. Check below the description of this video and on a pinned comment for the link to their website and a code that can save you from $50 off of the 2400 watt model and 15% off any other product on the Opes website. Again, thank you Opes for sponsoring this video. And this will explain to you what I meant, that there are in trillions of dollars out there, but quadrillions. Remember, 1 million is 1,000,000. 1 billion is 1,000 million. 1 trillion is 1,000 billion. And 1 quadrillion is 1,000 trillion. Well, we're in a much worse situation than just 1 quadrillion. Let's read along. We are at the end of a major era. Von Greyens warns of a 2.5 quadrillion disaster waiting to happen. And I've only skimmed through this article, but that's exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about derivatives. And wait until you hear how bad it is. Man, I can't stop talking. When I tell you all that, when the dollar finally fails, that what we're going to have is a resource problem. And what I mean by that is that people are not going to have the labor required to earn what is needed to pay all of the debt that is floating out there. And the debt that is floating out there is so much that since people won't have the labor needed, then how are they going to eat? But let's read on. I'm going to start from right here where it says EVG. When they say EVG, they mean this gentleman here, Von Greyens, right? EVG is a former Swiss banker and an expert in risk. He says the risk in the global markets has never been this high. And when he says it has never been this high, he doesn't mean in recent history. He means in all of humanity. And by the way, this interview came from Rumble, from Mr. Greg Hunter's Rumble channel. If you're not subscribed to him, subscribe to Mr. Greg Hunter. And in Rumble, it's USA Watchdog, because Mr. Greg Hunter is a really good guy, honest guy, and he has great interviews. EVG explains credit has increased dramatically through derivatives. For those of you that don't understand what a derivative is like a bet. So let's say that, I bet you and me, I bet you that I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 6 months, right? And I probably should. But anyways, let's say that I bet you $100 that I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 6 months, right? That is a direct bet. Right? That is a direct bet between you and me. But then there's other people on the sideline saying, hey, I'm going to bet you that he loses. And they bet themselves on whether I'm going to lose or you're going to lose. And then people behind them say, hey, I bet you that this person will lose, the one that bet that I'm going to lose. And it just goes on and on and on. And the problem with that is that it creates derivatives of the original bet. It creates derivatives of the original value. And the problem is that for the original bet, I have that $100 to pay you if I lose, and you have that $100 to pay me if you lose. But look at all of the other dollars that are being bet as derivatives. I'm not sure if I explained that right, but let's read on. He explains it much better. He says that credit has increased dramatically through derivatives. All instruments being issued now by banks, pension funds, stock funds is all synthetic. So all of this money out there that you think is out there, it's not. It's fake, synthetic. There is no real underlying payment in anything almost. Meaning what? That there is not enough money to pay what is owed. There is not enough money in the system to pay what is owed. And some people may argue, well, isn't the increase of the monetary supply why inflation is so high? Yes, but imagine that. With all of the money that's been printed, with all of the inflation that has been injected into the economy, there is still not enough money to pay everything that is owed. Still not enough. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, if that doesn't make you stop to think, man, I don't know if anything will. He says here, quote, therefore, my estimate for derivatives would be at least $2 quadrillion. And I think that is probably being conservative. Then we have debt on top of 300 trillion, and he means worldwide debt on top of $300 trillion. And we also have a couple $100 trillion of unfunded liabilities, and that's here in the United States. Unfunded liabilities like Social Security, like pensions and things like that the government has promised out but is not funded for it right now. So we are talking about $2.5 quadrillion, and that's with a global GDP of $80 trillion. I can't do the math right now. I think maybe that's 30 times, 32 times, something like that. So what does that mean? That means that if we have, as a world, an $80 trillion GDP, which means what the entire world earns in a year, about $80 trillion, right? That's all the business that's done around the world, $80 trillion. And you divide that into 2.5 quadrillion, which is, I think it's about 30 something. That's how many years it would take of labor with no expenditures for that debt to be paid off. But people can't just live without eating, without housing, without heat. So obviously that 80 trillion world GDP can be put towards that 2.5 quadrillion debt, because then people would just die off. They would have absolutely no money to eat or anything like that. So you can see here that that debt is pretty much unpayable. It is unpayable, ladies and gentlemen, and that is why I say we will have a resource issue, and people will die. People will die. This is going to be like a bomb going off. So there is a disaster waiting to happen, and especially because all this is created money, all of this created money has created no value whatsoever, and that is 100% true. I always knew this would collapse, and it's taken longer than I expected, but I think we are at the end of a major era, and that is why we must prepare. These derivatives at some point in the coming few years will actually turn into debt. There you go. Central banks will have to cover all of the outstanding liabilities of the commercial banks, as we are seeing with the Credit Suisse Bank of England and etc. So you see what I'm talking about? That these derivatives are debt, and eventually that debt is going to have to be covered. So there's going to have to be money for it. What's going to happen when banks print all that money and put it out into the system? That's why I say, if you think that inflation is high now, oh my goodness, you just wait, ladies and gentlemen. Inflation is the song that never ends. This is going to happen across the board, whether it's called derivatives or called debt. As far as I'm concerned, it's the same thing, and it is the same thing. It will have the same effect on the world financial system, which will be disastrous, of course. He says that the derivatives markets were simply a way for financial institutions to carry debt and not show it on their balance sheets. In the end, everything will balance out, and it's not going to be good when it does. Nobody can repay the debt, and they can't even pay interest on it. So therefore, when the debt implodes, so will the assets that were financed by this debt. Why? Because it can't be paid back. So both sides of the balance sheet have to come down, whether it comes down by 50%, 75%, or 90%. He says, I don't know. All I think about is risk, and the financial system will not survive in its present form. Central banks only use one kind of medicine, and that is more money printing. Now you are getting negative returns on printed money, so that is not going to save anything. When he says you're getting negative returns on printed money, it means that inflation is higher than what you earn, right? So if you have a $100 bill today, next year, that $100 bill will buy you the equivalent of about what $90 or $80 bought you today, all right? And he goes on to say, sadly, we are looking at a situation when this system will start to implode. The rich are still rich, but the poor are really poor. You know, for all of you naysayers out there, for all of you freaks out there that leave in the comments that I'm crazy, that doom and gloom, this is doom and gloom. All right, I guarantee you this is doom and gloom, but it's real. It's reality. It is something that will happen. As I've often said, mathematics does not care who you are. It does not care what gender you are, sex you are, political affiliation you are. It doesn't care. All it cares about is that 2 + 2 = 4. At least in this system that we live in now, in this dimension that we live in, 2 + 2 = 4. Overall, in the UK, Germany, and most European countries, people don't have enough money to live. This is a human disaster already, with food costs going up 25% and energy going up the same, and gasoline and interest rates and rents. People don't have enough money, and that is happening right now. Imagine when this derivative bubble finally bursts, ladies and gentlemen. People are going to still have money, but that money is going to be worth so much less. And those people that have assets, okay, something that is worth something, that has tangible value, those people that have assets, the value of the assets in nominal terms will keep up with that hyperinflation that we are going to face. But those people that have no assets, that have only debt, and this here is a form of debt. This, a Federal Reserve note or a currency of whatever country you're in, that is a form of debt. So if you are sitting on debt, either on dollars that you own or currency that you own, that you have, or debt in the form of loans, you will lose. You will be the loser. That is why I advocate that if you have excess wealth, that you go ahead and transfer some of it into something, an asset that will increase with inflation. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research. But that is what's going to keep you liquid when all of this money starts turning into funny money, which is what it really is. Let me put it in better terms. When all of this money becomes worthless. It's a human disaster of mega proportions. It's so sad, and governments will have no chance of doing anything about it. And in closing, he says, this is why it is getting closer for implosion, because the whole system cannot take this. The risk is increasingly exponential, so I think people should be prepared. Most asset markets have lost money, and it's going to get worse. And then, of course, they say that if you want to hear the entire interview, just go ahead and click on this right here. Click on this. I will leave the link to this article on a pinned comment. Click on this and listen to the whole video. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not educated in this, or if you do not know about this, when I say if you're not educated in this, like finances, I'm not calling you stupid, by the way. All right, because most people aren't. It's the way the school system was set up. But if you don't know what's going on with the financial system, trust me, it will affect you. No matter what part of life you're in, no matter what socioeconomic level you're in, this is going to affect everyone in the world. And those people that are not prepared, they are going to be demolished. You will have absolutely nothing. No matter how hard you worked, no matter how diligent you were, with the money that you saved, which is, in my opinion, somewhat of a mistake to save money for the long term. But anyways, this is going to hurt everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. The only people that it will not hurt are those people in the very top that understand that assets is what retains its value during hyperinflationary circumstances. That is what retains its value. So I hope that you look into this. I hope that you go over there and subscribe to Mr. Greg Hunter. He's a great guy. And do your research, because you're going to be affected. I'm going to be affected. Everyone will. Very, very few people that know what's going on. They're setting themselves up so that they can have all of your wealth transferred onto their balance sheet. Having said that, I hope that you have a great day. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.